In this week's episode of the Sleeptrust podcast, I'm super excited because I'm going to talk with Monka Sharma, a sleep doctor, sleep expert from India, and the founder of Sleep Moksha. So what we're going to do today is just to have a chat about COVID-19, what else, because it's omnipresent, and see what impact COVID has on our sleep as a population and for us as individuals, and the other way around, what sleep can do for or against COVID-19. But first off, hi Monika, thanks for joining the Sleep Trust podcast.
Hello, Michael. Good to see you, and thank you for having me.
Oh, I'd love to have you here. So maybe let's get started to give you the chance to introduce yourself and to introduce Sleep Moksha, which you're the founder of.
Great. So, Michael, thank you for the introduction. Yes, I specialize in behavioral sleep medicine, and Sleep Moksha, we are into sleep consulting, education, and coaching. And we offer sleep services designed to help people feel more relaxed and confident about their sleep, and at the same time provide them with the lifelong tools they need to think and behave like a good sleeper. So as a BSM specialist and researcher, my work revolves around helping teens, adults, companies improve their sleep by creating the culture and working environment that enables them to give their best by performing at their optimum levels all day. And my clinical area of focus is sleep quality, duration, and insomnia. And my research focus is primarily management of sleep disorders in patients with coronary artery disease. And all our interventions, we have a multifaceted approach to treating sleep and common emotional problems. And we believe in targeting on understanding and treating the root causes rather than attempting to address the symptoms. So all of the treatments are drug-free and non-invasive.
That's great. And I love that approach because it's exactly the approach that Sleep Trust takes too, as you know, and we've got a lot of comments. So look at sleep at COVID now, this big thing that is omnipresent and spreads a lot of negativity, I'd say, around populations. What's your opinion on what is this doing to us as a population or even as individuals when it comes to our sleep?
Right, Michael. So I say that COVID-19 is a perfect storm for sleep, you know. So what happened in the early days of lockdown, I mean, we all went into trauma panic mode, isn't it? We were all trying to get the home office set up, you know, in order to work from home. We were trying to homeschool. We still are trying to homeschool our children. You know, I see most people are doing full 8 hour from home. Some are made to do 18 hours a day working from home. You know, we are just trying to ensure everyone is eating well. We are trying to cope with social distancing. We are trying to understand the new normal, so to say. And this is also overwhelming, you know. And so, you know, when people go to bed, their minds are racing. You know, they have thoughts like, oh, did I do a good enough job at homeschooling today? Did I get enough work done? Do I have enough food for my family? Should I be going out for grocery? Is it safe? And, you know, it just doesn't stop. So even leaving a COVID aside, Michael, I think the circumstances we've been thrown into and navigating the physical practicalities of it is what is causing, you know, a lot of anxiety and sleeplessness globally.
It's just massive, isn't it? And when I think about, obviously we have to be careful and conscious about a disease like COVID. But on the other side, I also think it's just spreading out so much anxiety into the population. And you know, I just finished off reading You Are the Placebo from Dr. Joe Dispenza. And it just made clear again what we essentially know, especially we as behavioral, you know, therapists and people who work in that area, that our mind has an impact on our body. So even though we are kind of genetically wired, Dr. Joe Dispenza scientifically laid out that our thoughts have an impact on which genes get, you know, triggered and which don't. So if we think positive, we're more likely to keep healthy, right? So it's a thing where I kind of personally have a hard time to figure out, okay, what, you know, how are we as a population able to be careful without getting anxious about it?
Yeah. So, yes. So anxieties now revolve around, I mean, they're everywhere. They're staring at us 24/7. They revolve around work, money, family life, health, and other crucial issues, that demand a person's attention without necessarily requiring the fight or flight reaction. So, typically what I say about anxiety is that it's okay, to be anxious and worried at this point. I mean, the whole world collapsed, and if this won't make us anxious and stressed out, what else would? So these are usual reactions to unusual circumstances. If you look at it, anxiety is a normal reaction. It is a normal emotion, so it's our mind's natural response to intense stress. And if you think about it, stress is a preservation instinct. It's your brain's way of reacting to stress and alerting you from potential danger ahead. So, so when an individual faces potentially harmful or worrying triggers, feelings of anxiety are not only normal but necessary for survival. So everyone feels anxious now and then, but yeah, there is a thin line between normal anxiety and clinical anxiety. So yes, the nervous feeling before an important event or during a difficult situation, and that's echo of the original fight or flight reaction. We know that. There are a group of mental illnesses that cause constant and overwhelming anxiety and fear, especially in people, those who already have some mental health or psychiatric history, or people who already have some physical conditions, so they are the ones who are feeling all the more overwhelmed, and they are in a tight space right now.
I think that there are a couple of things that just build up with this COVID thing because it's kind of omnipresent. It doesn't matter if you turn on the TV, the radio, if you talk to your neighbor, if you're allowed to do so at the moment. So you kind of always hear COVID. So it's very hard, even if you would like to kind of get out of that space, to get out of that. And if we're talking about lockdowns, it's always also making it harder to move our bodies, which would be better for in regard to fighting stress or anxiety, to have a run.
Correct.
Or do things like that. I think there are a couple of things that are just building up. So what do you think would be a good approach to kind of cover to narrow down that anxiety? So what would be a couple of really good things, practical things that people could do to kind of just narrow down the anxiety?
Yeah, so Michael, as I just mentioned, that first is that let's make peace with it. Let's accept it. That look, this is what the new normal is. This is not something that we had signed for. We've been thrown into it, and this is a bitter reality right now. So one is that we keep complaining about it, and the other is that we look at the ways that we can cope with it. So making peace with it is, I think, number one, being sensitive to signs and symptoms of this distress, of anxiety, of sleeplessness, and all those feelings is, I think, the first step towards working towards treatment. So I think it's time that we, start making ourselves and our significant others more sensitive about the signs and symptoms of anxiety, and also to be able to clearly make out what is normal anxiety and what is clinical anxiety.
Yeah. So an approach that I 100% agree that we have to make peace with this. We have to accept it to a certain degree. It's just there. And
Yes.
What I always try to do is to put things into perspective. Like, obviously it is a disease that can also kill people, or you can feel ill. But on the other side, just looking at the sheer numbers, so even if you take the US, they're kind of cracking the high score, as it seems, when it comes to infections. But it doesn't really matter, because if you look at the bigger picture, every year 2.8 million people die in the US alone, right? So
Right.
at some point, I think, is it also a thing of just accepting that life will come to an end? at some point that people kind of get forced to think about that things are, that we're not here forever. That kind of
Mm-hmm.
COVID brings this topic to the front, which we're kind of pushing
Mm-hmm.
away, because who wants to die? Nobody wants to die, obviously. We want to live, we want to feel
Correct.
healthy. And we kind of
Mm-hmm.
tend to, many of us, I think, just don't want to think about that. And it's kind of omnipresent now, because the sheer numbers are not, that it's not as if every second person is going to die. That's not the case. Even looking at 2.8 million that die every year, and you look at the COVID deaths in the US, it's, I think 200,000 people who died, from whom probably many of them would have died because of age or other diseases. So,
Correct. Correct.
so do you think that's one of the topics, and do you think it's helpful to try to get things into perspective, that you don't?
Sure, sure. I mean, there are a lot of things which, I mean, if you look at the good side of it, people have started talking about mental health. People have started, coming out. There's so much of stigma attached to, these topics of, psychological problems and mental health. So finally, people, have started talking about it. I mean, right now, what we're witnessing is a second wave, which is mental health crisis, and parallelly we have a sleep crisis as well. I don't think I have seen so many people going sleepless at one point of time. So yes, anxiety is a big cause that why people are unable to get their dose of good sleep. So
So
yes, I mean, anxiety is number one.
when it comes to anxiety, I personally find that gratitude, obviously it's nothing that, will snip away a heavy, especially clinical anxiety. That's a different topic. They're very
Mm-hmm.
hardwired triggers sometimes, but and I think gratitude is just such a powerful tool. If you're getting anxious about things, and you really tap into the feeling of being grateful, thankful for small things, and you just do that exercise for a
Correct.
couple of minutes, it's just not possible to feel thankful and, anxious at the same time. And do
Yeah.
you work
So
with gratitude too?
I agree with you. Yes, I do. So I think that if we can express compassion for ourselves and others around, who are sharing this experience, it will go a long way to squashing, these anxiety and overthinking condition that both many of us are grappling with at this, point. So acknowledge that you're experiencing a trauma, and what I also say is try not to compare your experiences with that of others. So these are some of the other things apart from gratitude, and, taking care of your body, exposing yourself to bright light every day, because, that does wonders in terms of your sleep and also your mood. So these are some of the things, that I do tell my clients when I feel that anxiety is something that they're finding overwhelming to cope with.
Great. So I know you've got a kid and I've got three. So let's talk about kids. So what's your personal view on how does your kid get along with COVID? How do you kind of talk with your kid about COVID? And let's just kind of dig into that.
Yeah, sure. So, Michael, when it comes to kids, I mean, for sure, they don't understand COVID-19, especially my son is 4.5. But what I know is that they they notice, when their parents are stressed, and they react to their parents' emotional state. So they might not fully comprehend what's COVID-19 and its effect on our health and economy, but they do notice that their parents are stressed out, or there is something serious or unusual happening in the world out there, because being cooped at home all day is not something which they are conditioned or which they should be made to do, but then circumstances are such. So so instead of being able to explain how they are feeling, however, kids are experiencing their own physical effects of stress, and they often show their emotional stress in a physical way. Like I see, tantrums to be an obvious sign of stress, and withdrawal is also common. You know, a total lack of emotion is often a behavioral change spotted in very young children when they are under stress or anxiety. So And in the past couple of months or so, with regard to pediatric sleep, I have seen children who had previously been napping and sleeping through the night, certainly having sleeping problems. And so are their parents. I mean, if kids are not sleeping, obviously there's no way that parents can sleep.
Yeah.
So it's not just the sleep patients, kids, their parents. So lately everyone seems to be having sleep complaints.
Yeah, that's and there's a social thing too. I'm not sure if your kid was able to see kids in the similar age, but in many countries there were lockdowns for at least weeks, sometimes even months. And
Mm-hmm.
if kids are not able to socialize with kids in the same age, not able to go to the kindergarten, nursery schools, and things like that, that will probably have
Correct.
an impact too, right?
Yes. I mean, they're not just used to
Yeah,
staying at home all the time. And, talking as a parent, we are not used to having them around us all the time.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they have their own routines. I mean, they're going out, they're going to, play schools or kindergartens or, primary schools, whatever. Then they have their extracurricular activities, they have their own routines. And now, they're just home all the time. So yes, I mean, it's difficult for them, and they miss seeing their peers, going to birthday parties or, going on
yeah.
play dates, all of that. Yes, they're cribbing about that.
I must have been just thinking about having a 4.5 year now. So I don't. Mine are a little bit older. That must have been a real
Hmm.
challenge because I can remember those times. And I feel so lucky that my kids are now 15, 13, and 11. So it was, and we've got little
Okay.
gardens. So it was kind of
Yeah.
easier from that perspective. Think of how that would have been, years ago. Oh my God, that would have been horror.
But
So,
then I think when we talk them out, so few of the things that that worked with me and my son, and also what I, suggest my clients is that in stressful times, for children to cope with, a friendly talk or, having a sympathetic body language, makes them feel safe and secure. So explain them, obviously you can't tell them the nitty-gritties, but then telling them that, look, we are in a situation and this is for our safety and this is for our good, that we need to stay indoors, or these are the do's and these are the don'ts. So I think they get it. Yeah.
what I did, or we did, my wife and me, we kind of told our kids that it's not dangerous for kids anyway, because just looking at the numbers again at that point, I said that's a good thing to lay out. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're completely safe. And what you said, but here are the rules. We have to do this. We have to wear a mask, obviously, when we're going shopping or things like that. And we have to, kind of bring the social things that we're doing down to a minimum. So now they're able to meet friends again, but only
Okay.
we narrowed down that, and that wasn't able
Mm-hmm.
for I think for 2 months. So these are things,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's easier on my side than if even as your side with 4.5 years, or people out there who have even younger kids, because at some point they can't understand this, right? I can consciously tell my kids something, they're going to understand it and say, okay, I know how we're going to handle this. But even with the 4.5 year, it's just harder. And if you've got a 2.5 year, you can just forget it. It's probably not going to work.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, we, so, I mean, when parents approach me that, how do we deal with this situation? So I tell them that, we have studies revealing that children, young kids, they benefit when we treat them as conversation partners. So acknowledging their feelings, they're not feeling up to it, or whatever it is, so acknowledge their feelings, responding to their implied questions, and offering them the support when they are distressed. So not only do these tactics teach children to cope with their negative emotions, like I talked about, their tantrum throwing and their withdrawal and all of that, and these are clear signs and symptoms of stress and anxiety, and of course sleep. So there are a lot of disturbed sleep patterns that lately I have been seeing in children. So, all these things, when you treat them as a conversation partner, it helps babies or children to develop more secure, healthy attachment, kind of relationship, a deeper bonding with their parents. And also, how I typically tell my clients is that it is completely up to you how you want your kids to remember this pandemic, say a decade from now. It's, if we look at the brighter side, it is an opportunity for you to create memories which are going to stay with your child forever, for his entire lifetime, because of the simple reason that we have never spent so much of time together, 24 hours together with our children. I mean, it doesn't happen anymore, Michael, in the kind of world that we are living. They have so much to do. Kids have so much of pressure. I mean, academics and other things. So I tell them, I tell all my parents that, look, this is opportunity for you to create memories and, have stronger, deeper connection with your kids. So make them feel loved, shower them with hugs and kisses, make them their favorite meal with them. So involve yourself in active listening, compliment them so that they feel, a positive, so obviously compliment them with genuine praises, include them, in daily household chores, because I also feel that it is a great time for children to be working on their life skills. I mean, there's a lot that they study, knowledge, learning, and all of that, but then life skills, the basic life skills. I think it's a perfect opportunity for us as parents to be involving them and exposing them to basic life skills that they must be knowing, be that cooking or washing or gardening or whatever. So my child helps me in everything, because we hardly have any help at home, so we are mostly managing the show on our own. So he is engaged and he's learning so many things in the whole process. So I think it's ultimately it boils down to us as parents, that what memories are we giving them. It's something that, oh my god, I was under lockdown, and I was under home curfew and I couldn't step out and all of that, or yet that, yes, I remember painting a rainbow with my mom and putting it on the window, or helping her out in kitchen, or things like that. So yeah.
Monica, I love what you just laid out. I think it's the master plan that everybody of our listeners who's a parent should just take. Spreading love to your kids, keeping in mind that you're creating the memories that your kid is going, that your entire
Yes.
family is going to have. You're creating
Yes.
reality, and I think we should never forget. It doesn't matter how much they see in the outside, especially small kids in the outside or on TV or in newspapers or whatever. Important is what the parents do. That's their number one focus. And if you
That's
spread
number
love and
one. That's
calmness,
number one, So mostly people will ask me, or my clients would ask me, parents, of younger ones, that what are like do's and don'ts, So I tell them that, children are like sponges, they absorb everything. So just be mindful, just be careful about what you are talking about, coronavirus and death toll and all of that in front of them, because they're absorbing. They might not understand the nitty-gritties, but they know that this is serious and this is not, a hunky-dory or a rosy picture. So they absorb how you talk, they absorb what you talk, they absorb everything, things like how you manage money or how you deal with crises and challenges. So we are role playing for them, so how we treat ourselves, if we complain too much, their habits come from our habits. So this is something that as a parent that we need to remind ourselves, so yes, so I tell parents that don't consume too much of news in front of them, don't discuss coronavirus too much in front of them, don't talk about death toll, don't talk about positive cases in front of them. What you can do is make them feel valued, give your attention, give your presence, give your quality time, demonstrate respect, because we are their role models. Show more positivity, not just amongst ourselves, but also the world outside.
and
So,
just just to bridge that one to to your parents, it's what you're doing here is essentially good for yourself too. Maybe even when, because if you have to be strong for somebody else, like your kid, put away anxiety because you know your kid needs a strong father,
Correct.
strong mother, then
Correct.
that's going to be something that's going to give you purpose and acting in a different way
Yes.
that you might not
Yes.
be able to do if you wouldn't have kids. So that's going to give back to
Mm.
you too,
Yes.
just from a
And
behavioral perspective.
that's what, yes, and that's what I mean when I say this is a perfect stage for skill building, for us to be role models, So healthy coping habits, more of skill building habits. If I'm exercising, my son is watching me, you know
Yeah, yeah.
so it's automatically I'm passing on to him. So these are the kind of things that I do it with my son, and I suggest my clients as well, that let's focus, let's concentrate on the positivity, the positive aspect. There's so much time that we have in our hands right now, because we're working from home, and we can't socialize much, we don't have the usual routine which we've been doing all our life. So for I tell them it's a honeymoon period if you think about it.
Wonderful. So just look at the
Yeah.
time. We're kind of a little bit longer than I used to usually have this podcast, but I would like to scratch at least one topic, and that is our health. Because on the other side, we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about anxiety, we're talking about all these things, and there are so much things that we can do, and sleep is obviously
Mm-hmm.
probably the most important thing that we can do for our health. So just looking
Correct.
at what Matthew Walker, he's got this book, Why We Sleep. It's a bestseller, big thing, and he lays out a lot of things. But on one thing, he kind of references a study where they took people that were sleeping on average, around about at least more than 7 hours, and people that were sleeping only 5 hours. And then
Hmm.
they kind of analyzed these people when they got in touch with the virus, with the flu, right? And whether,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
peer group that only got, 5 hours of sleep got sick to
Mm-hmm.
50%, 50%. And the ones
Mm-hmm.
that slept at least 7 hours only got sick 18%. That was the number. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have 100 people, it's the difference of 50 people getting sick or 18. And that's the power of sleep. Only sleep more than 7 hours or sleep around 5 hours. I think that's so important, isn't it? To kind of create awareness that the
It
one
is.
thing is what's happening outside,
Yes.
but the other thing is what can we do by simple things like sleeping enough to fight against corona or other health diseases.
Correct. Correct. So, like what I say, that everybody's talking about ways to boost immunity, what to eat, how to eat, how much to eat, what exercise, all of that. But then I think that the biggest missing puzzle of our immunity boosting formula, which is sleep, is completely missing. So nobody's really talking about the effect a good sleep can have on building our immunity.
and
So we have so much of
massive.
research. We have, yes, it's unbelievable. I mean, studies after studies have shown that how sleep helps you to boost your immunity. It helps you to recover, and in contrast, if you are sleeping, if you're sleep deficient, then how it delays your recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're also going to look better, you're going to be in a better mood, and
Oh
so on, more
yes.
productive. So
Yes.
it's all proven. Somebody once
Yes.
said, if you could get a pill that could deliver on these promises that sleep really delivers on, you would be rich.
Oh yes. But the
And,
message needs to get out there.
and one thing when it comes to our health, and immune system, a good thing to do is having a cold shower. So I'm kind of in this little challenge with myself, inspired through Wim Hof,
Mm-hmm.
to do cold showers.
Ah,
This is good for your
wow.
immune system too, but I can assure you that having a good night of sleep is far more enjoyable than having a cold shower. So
Yes.
definitely
You're
go for
saying
that.
that from your experience, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, if we talk about the connection between sleep and our physical health, then we have so many studies, with us, and studies after studies have shown that poor sleep is effective in contributing to weight gain and obesity. Then we have studies highlighting the connection between sleep and hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, dementia, Alzheimer, and even cancer for that matter. Yes, so it goes far beyond feeling fatigued or tired or having a bad mood the next day. Um, so what I say is that there is no single aspect of your health which can go unharmed at the cost of sleeplessness.
So, Monica, now that we had this wonderful conversation, what would be your most important tip, or what should people do that suffer anxiety, notice that their sleep is getting a hit, to kind of recover?
Yeah. So, as we just mentioned about that, let's first be sensitive to signs and symptoms of anxiety and also insomnia. And some of the signs or telltales, what I call, of insomnia can, look like when we have trouble falling asleep or initiating sleep, or when we have frequent awakenings, waking up several times in the middle of the night and remaining awake, sometimes for hours. Then people who have sleeping difficulties, they end up taking frequent and long naps during the day. They have difficulty concentrating at work. They are found falling asleep at inappropriate times, mostly while sitting, idle or watching TV or reading, something like that. Then waking up too early in the morning, say they're wide awake at 4 a.m., 3:30, 4:30 a.m., and they don't have any reason, to be waking up that early. Loud snoring, breathing, or gasping noises while you asleep, that is another very important indicator of an underlying sleep disorder. Then some people, there is a condition, in sleep disorders where there is an irresistible urge to move your legs, or a tingling or an unpleasant sensation or a crawling feeling in the legs, particularly at bedtime. And also people who feel that they require a stimulant such as caffeine to keep yourself awake during the daytime. So these are some of the telltales of sleeplessness or warning signs of sleep disorder. Also perpetual fatigue and irritability during the day, even after getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. People will complain of reduced physical strength, so they feel tired, they feel lethargic, they feel lazy, they feel as if they don't have energy. So every single morning they have to drag themselves out of the bed. So it's not that, okay, fine, it's a good day and let me kick start. So that refreshing feeling is missing, if you're chronically sleep deprived or if there is an underlying sleep disorder. So first thing first is that we need to be sensitive about these signs and symptoms and be mindful and being aware, and ask yourself this question: what is my relationship with sleep? Is it good? Do I wake up feeling happy and rejuvenated and, refreshed, or irritable, groggy, grumpy? Yeah. Okay. Now coming about to the recommendation part. Well, when we talk about good quality sleep, it is determined by three things: the preparation, environment, and timings. So environment or the surrounding, it plays a very, very important role. And when we talk about environment or surrounding, it's not just the physical environment, like the light or the sound or the temperature, but also the internal aspect, the internal environment, how you feel about yourself, some anxiety, some stress, low mood, overthinking, helplessness, hopelessness, worthlessness, these kind of feelings. And also, we always tell our sleep patients that you must create and maintain a very consistent sleep practices and schedule. And it's best to have a bedtime ritual, pre-bedtime ritual, So set a regular bedtime and pair it with a set time to wake up. The more consistent your wake up time, the more consistent your body functions. And then it's the same as with children, with adults. Cut down screen time before bedtime. And I typically say that before you say goodnight to your partner, say it to your gadgets, So turn off all your electronic gadgets at least an hour before bedtime. And the rule which I follow at my home, and I also suggest all my clients, is that do not bring electronic gadgets to your bedroom. It's best that you keep them out, or at least away from your bed. You have to put them in charge and all of that. So if you can't really, leave them outside your bedroom, then at least keep them out of your bed. And then the caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, and big meals right before bedtime. Caffeine is another, big problem and a barrier to good night's sleep. And so is alcohol. I mean, alcohol is the most, abused substance. It is taken as the most abused sleeping aid. People drink alcohol so that sleep initiation becomes easy for them without realizing that alcohol is actually ripping them of deep sleep.
Yeah.
So yes, then this is another big no before bedtime. Avoid eating big meals at night and try to finish dinner at least a couple of hours before bedtime. That's another suggestion. The same goes for smoking before bedtime, and because all of this shortens the duration of our sleep, and nicotine keeps us stimulating, which leads to the problem of early onset of sleep. So these are some of the things which I suggest all my clients when they are struggling with their sleep.
That was kind of a whole bunch of good tips, and I'm sure that that is super helpful. Maybe before we kind of close our session today, what would be the number one thing to think of in regards to COVID? I'm thinking of people who are working in the home office now, don't have the structure that they had in place before. What would be your number one tip for people that are suffering from bad sleep, kind of related to COVID and their home office, working in the home office?
So I would say that yes, I mean Zoom fatigue, we all know is zapping our energy, So when when we talk about working from home, the first thing I tell my clients is that make home office space feel different from leisure space. I mean, it's not that you are eating on the same bed, you have your laptop on the same bed, you're working in the same space. So have a different setup, a home office, and have a different feel. So you got to have a different space to hang out, a lounge, a place for leisure space, and then, a different setup where actually you can sit and work for, that is one thing. And another thing, with regards to Zoom fatigue, which is also taking a toll on our sleep, is that I tell is that schedule some meetings over the phone instead, because when you're on phone, you can take a few steps, you can go outside, take some fresh air, you can expose yourself to bright light. So I mean, if you can, then schedule some meetings over phone rather than staying glued to screen. And then again, we are absorbing a lot of blue light. So work from home thing, what I'll say is that be disciplined. I mean, just be more mindful towards the amount of blue light that we are consuming, because we just talked about that it delays secretion of melatonin, and then the whole thing delays your sleep onset. And also take refreshing pauses between meetings. Like I suggest to my patients, they can stand at one place and do jumping jacks or skipping or jumping, or they can quickly go and see their children, or grab, some healthy fruit. So take a refreshing pause between meetings, and also avoid scheduling meetings back to back, so keep some time between meetings, and also resist the urge to multitask. I always say that, without really realizing it, but it really drains you out and your energy. And choose a speaker view. That's another thing that I tell them. And also, before getting into meeting, I always tell my clients that settle and ground your attention before starting the meeting. So don't carry that baggage, into the meeting. That will only lower your efficiency and your productivity, and also drain you down.
So that was a big bag of things that you can do at home to
yes,
kind of get into the driver's seat. And with that, I'm going to close up this week's session. Monika, it was lovely and a pleasure to have you here on the Sleeptrust podcast. Thanks for taking your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me.
And I'm sure down the road, we're going to have the opportunity to have a session like this over a different topic again. For now, that's it.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, same here. That's it for this week's episode of the Sleeptrust podcast. I hope you enjoyed yourself and that you tune in next week when we are going to talk about the topic that I still have to choose. Until then, have a superb sleep.